I wanted to tell you a little bit about what Go Public Gardens Days is. So Go Public Gardens Days is a spring observation of the American Public Gardens Association. And the American Public Gardens Association has more than 600 garden members across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Canada, and many other countries around the world. And we all joined in celebration of public gardens and what they can do to drive attention and attendance to public gardens and arboretum across the North America and the world, to preserve plants, to encourage our use of nature, and to get out into the natural world. So hundreds of gardens have submitted details about their participation in Go Public Gardens Days at gopublicgardensdays.org. So you can locate gardens in your area using gopublicgardensdays.org to filter by the types of events being offered by different gardens in your area. So I encourage you to do so. I'd like to make a special shout out to Alexandra Cantwell at Norfolk Botanic Garden, who was able to get this series going of our highlights of gardens across the US each night. Please feel free to join us if you can. We have continued tours going on tomorrow night, Thursday night, Friday night, and even Saturday night. They'll happen at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So feel free to sign up and register for any of those that you might be interested in joining as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jamie Burghardt, who is the Director of Horticulture and Education at the Waterfront Botanical Gardens in Louisville, Kentucky. Jamie?
Hello, hello. Good afternoon or good evening, America, wherever you may be. Thank you very much, Lauren. Let's get this party started. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully everyone can hear me all right as I begin to share screen. So to begin with, let's talk about where Kentucky is, a little geography lesson. But since many people who visit botanical gardens around the country, me being one of them, I always want to go at different times of year and see what plants are in and out of bloom, or when the fall foliage may or may not be happening as I travel the country. So to begin, Kentucky primarily is in USDA Plant Hardiness Zone 6B. However, in far western Kentucky, it is Zone 7A. And if you look up here, right in this little green spot right here, that is Louisville. Louisville has a classic urban heat island, which, with all the concrete and lack of trees in our metropolitan central district, it actually creates a warm bubble in which we are in Zone 7A. So we are ahead phenologically in springtime, and we are a little bit later in the fall from the surrounding countryside because of our warm microclimate here in Louisville. So Louisville, Kentucky is a historic river town in a state that once was part of Virginia. The only disruption to river trade transportation between Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania and New Orleans, Louisiana is a rock rapids known as the Falls of the Ohio, excuse me. The portage along the central point on the Ohio River became Louisville in 1778. Today, our metropolitan area is home to about 1.3 million residents of both Kentucky and Southern Indiana, and that's a region that we call Kentuckiana. And the city itself, Louisville, is about 620,000 individuals. So you may be interested, what's in bloom right now if you visited Louisville? And I'm going to show you, even though you are potentially tens, if not thousands of miles away. Right now, the unofficial state tree of Kentucky, the yellowwood, or Cladastris kentuckia, is in bloom here in Louisville. Of course, tall bearded irises are in full bloom right now. Roses are just coming onto their own. Knockout roses have been in full bloom for about a week, and the rest of the hybrids are starting to come on now. Coosa dogwood is in full bloom here in the metropolitan area. Depending on where you live in the country, this is called American fringe tree, or Grancy graybeard, or granddaddy graybeard. That is Chionanthus virginicus. That is the Native American fringe tree. That's in full bloom now, if not on its way out here in the metropolitan area. And everyone loves the color blue, and this is wild false indigo, Baptisia australis, and it is in full bloom right now here in Louisville. So I wanted to start off that it is pronounced by locals as Louisville. However, if you do say Louisville, we'll probably just give you a gentle nod. We'll know what town you're talking about. No matter what you call Louisville, it's also known as the Derby City, River City, the Falls City, or simply the Ville. And it's also sometimes referred to as the northernmost southern city, or it might be called the southernmost northern city, especially by our in-state rivals over in Lexington. Now, you may know Louisville because of the Kentucky Derby, which is the first Saturday in May. Or you may know us from our baseball bats, the Louisville Slugger, which is typically made from ash tree wood. Maybe you're a bourbon fan, so you know Kentucky is all about bourbon. And how many of you knew that the World Hub headquarters of UPS was here in Louisville? It's also home to bluegrass, that fine Kentucky grass that makes a beautiful lawn in the northern cooler parts of the country, or also this type of bluegrass music. Originally known as kind of mountain hillbilly music, but there is bluegrass music here that's well known and historically found in Kentucky. Some of our favorite sons include Cassius Clay, more recently known as Muhammad Ali, as well as Colonel Sanders, KFC. Both Muhammad Ali and Colonel Sanders are buried here in Louisville at Cave Hill Cemetery, a beautiful resource of very old trees that you should come visit when you're in Louisville, as well as us here at Waterfront Botanical Gardens. Also, Waterfront Botanical Gardens, we're an infant when it comes to our comrades around the country, when it comes to the age and development of a botanical garden. We are barely 2 years old, and we are being developed on a former city neighborhood that was wiped out by several floods on the Ohio River, which then became a city dump, which then sat fallow for about 3 decades. And now it's having its rebirth, its renaissance, as we transform it into the 23-acre Waterfront Botanical Gardens. My name is Jamie Burghardt. I'm the Director of Horticulture and Education at Waterfront Botanical Gardens. And for over 35 years, Louisvillians have been trying to construct a botanical garden in urban metropolitan Jefferson County, Kentucky. The Waterfront Botanical Gardens was started by Botanica, which was an umbrella nonprofit organization for the local Louisville gardening community that was started in 1993. And it was started to help enlighten, entertain, and educate our community about the botanical world. In 2001, Botanica learned that it was the beneficiary of a trust established by member Helen Harrigan, a local gardener with a desire to see a botanical garden and conservatory built in Louisville. Helen's gift reshaped the focus of our organization, and we set out about our work to create what has become Louisville's Waterfront Botanical Gardens. So I now have a video I would like to share with you that gives a little bit of the background information. Bear with me. Now, as I find the video, sit back and relax for this 3.5-minute video.
The site for the Waterfront Botanical Gardens lies within the boundaries of one of Louisville's oldest areas, known as the Point. In the early days, the Point was populated with the antebellum summer homes of prosperous French families from New Orleans who came north to escape the heat. Over time, the Point evolved as a working-class neighborhood with a mixture of small factories and mills, frame cottages, and small brick homes. Adding to the character, shanty boats were often parked along Beargrass Creek nearby. Christian Heigold immigrated to Kentucky in the 1850s and built a house in the Ohio Street neighborhood. Following the devastating floods of 1937 and the early 1940s, the Heigold house was the only house left standing. Mayor Charles Farnsley saved the facade of the house to preserve the original style of the neighborhood, but sadly, the remaining area was condemned and became the Ohio Street dump. Because trash transported to the dump often contained ash and hot coals from coal-burning fireplaces, the Ohio Street dump frequently caught fire and would smolder for days. When I-71 was completed in the late 1960s, the proximity of the dump made it an unattractive gateway to the city, and in 1973, the Ohio Street dump closed. An 8-year, multi-step closing plan was initiated in order to meet public health requirements and stringent EPA rules for filling and stabilizing the site. Water runoff, gas release, and soil testing have been performed since the 1980s and show the area to be stable. Although there are no pollutants that are harmful to visitors, the site is under a management plan with the Energy and Environment Cabinet of Kentucky to properly manage the garbage and cap any exposed areas. Botanic Inc. was formed as a non-profit organization to build a botanical garden for Louisville. In the early 2000s, Botanic approached the city about acquiring the 23-acre site. A development agreement was forged between the two parties, and the volunteer board of directors began to research the 135 deeds of the neighborhood. The goal was to consolidate them into one deed so that Botanica could purchase the property. That research took 6 years. Finally, in 2017, Botanica purchased the site from the city of Louisville for $1 with the intent and restriction to build a botanical garden. In 2014, Botanica Inc. hired architects Perkins and Will to design a master plan for the site. With this new master plan, fundraising began in order to raise an estimated $65 million for the 3-phase project. In 2019, the organization officially changed its name to the Waterfront Botanical Gardens and will open the Grazer Family Education Center and surrounding gardens in October 2019. Fundraising and continued development of this project is essential in order to show visitors what an urban botanical garden can do to promote education, economic development, and neighborhood revitalization on the site of a former landfill. This is where we began. We are the Waterfront Botanical Gardens, and this is where we grow.
All right, back to my PowerPoint presentation. If I can find it. Oh no. All right, bear with me a second. So here is our updated master plan. Again, it's a 23-acre site atop of a former dump. We are out of the 100-year floodplain of nearby the Ohio River and Beargrass Creek. This has been recently updated. There are 3 phases in our development. Right now, we are in the middle or the latter parts of phase 1. So when you do come to visit us in Louisville, you will enter here on Frankfort Avenue, come up our Entrance Hill Drive, come all the way down here into a temporary parking lot, and pretty much there's about 4 acres of development here in the southeast corner that you can come visit. And we will have pictures of that today showing you what we've done in the past 2 years. So here's the site. We are located just to the east of downtown Louisville, right along the Ohio River. We're looking west right now where you can see the city skyline. And arguably we say that we have the finest sunsets in all of downtown Louisville because we are up on 25 feet of old historic garbage with soil capped on top. So we have great views to the west. The Ohio River is to our north, and right behind the vantage point of this photograph is the small Beargrass Creek, which is an urban watershed creek in Jefferson County, Kentucky. So here's a photo back in probably late 2018. When we acquired the site, we knew that the type of soil that was on top of the dump when it was capped early in the 1980s came from all over. Quality of soil varied considerably. The depth of the soil on top of the garbage below ranged from 12 inches to 36 inches. And of course, once you add in construction, you have issues stabilize our structures. We have to pound pilings downward into the soil through approximately 20 to 25 feet of garbage, and then through the old neighborhood streets, et cetera, below that, and then into the soil below. And so we have these large pilings underneath our structures to maintain their structural integrity as they age. So here's the shot of the Mary Lee Duffy Gardens roughly 2 years ago. And here it is today. Part of the main features of this garden is a 50-foot long water wall. This is made out of black Minnesota granite, and there are 247 nozzles in which propel down water to form a beautiful curtain. Here you see the Grazer Family Education Center, which was the first structure built on site and that we had open during our grand opening in October of 2019. We did have a bequest by someone, Louisvillian, native Louisvillian who passed away, and that allow us to continue in phase 1 construction. This is the L&T Leslie Botanical Classroom Complex, and that will be opening later this summer, and it pretty much doubles our square footage for rental and education space. The area right here to the west of the water wall, this is part of the native plant garden. And you can see right here where we have Chinese fringe tree, or sorry, Native American fringe tree continuing to bloom. This photo was taken this morning. Here's a shot from the Grazer Family Education Center to the west, looking at downtown Louisville a couple of years ago. And here it is today. Right here to the center right, this is the part of the pollinator garden. And right now you see Globemaster allium in bloom, as well as Walker's Low catmint. Here is the view of the Grazer Family Education Center. It has 105 windows that measure 3 feet wide by 12 feet tall. So when you are inside, when you look outside, you do feel that you are outside in a, you're almost like you're in a fishbowl looking out, and it doesn't matter what the weather is like. It's always perfect inside the education center. Here's the picture before, and then here's the picture of the completed plaza with a fountain, as well as the education center last summer. Here's a view. We had lots of compacted soil, and I can answer any questions on this later about what we did to amend our soil prior to planting. This became the Helen Harrigan Garden, and you notice that we did paint the fire hydrant a more subtle color, and we don't know if we'll get in trouble with that when the fire marshal comes up to visit the gardens, but we'll play it and we'll see what happens. Here's another view of what we had done to the soil in the Helen Harrigan Garden, which is a large 125-foot long mixed border with small flowering trees, geophytes or spring bulbs, traditional herbaceous perennials, as well as some dwarf conifers. And here it is this morning. The Helen Harrigan Garden was planted a year ago. So we started planting it in January of 2020, and we completed it through substantially completed it through the middle of 2020. We reopened to the public with less than COVID restrictions in June of 2020. Unfortunately, because we opened in October of 2019 and then COVID happened in March, none of our members or the greater community got to see our first spring at the Waterfront Botanical Gardens. And so this spring was extra special because it allowed people to see how much the plants had grown in 1 year, but then again, the splendor of its first spring open to the public. Our latest open garden is the Beargrass Creek Pathway. This is a 1,760-foot long pathway. It's a serpentine path that connects the Botanical Gardens proper up here at the plaza outside the Education Center to our connection to the 100-mile Louisville Loop, which is a pedestrian and cyclist ring that is being constructed all around Jefferson County. So when we are open to the public, you can come in from Frankfort Avenue and park your vehicle, or you can be walking or cycling around Louisville and enter our lower gate here to access the gardens. The main feature of the Beargrass Creek Pathway is the 20-foot drop of a waterfall stream. It is recirculated water 24/7, 365 days a year. Eventually, this will become a woodland garden in which we will be able to plant various native and non-native ephemeral wildflowers and other herbaceous perennials. Here's a close-up view of the waterfall stream. This was created by a Indiana landscape designer. It is local limestone, and even the driftwood that you see scattered about the waterfall stream is collected from the Ohio River right across the shore in southern Indiana. And one more view of the waterfall stream. This is illuminated at night, so during special events or during wedding rentals, the lights are on, they come on at dusk, and therefore you can see the entire waterfall stream and lower pool illuminated. We do have substantial pieces of art outdoors at the gardens already. Upon our opening, we had a grand opening and a ribbon cutting for Capriccio, which is a bronze sculpture that was made by a local artist. It is in the center, it is the centerpiece of our pollinator garden. Two views of it. We rarely get, well, it's been a while since we've gotten substantial snow, but this February was particularly chilly. And here you see the Capriccio statue as well as the left foliage in our pollinator garden for cover of birds, etc. What you'll do note here is that this is a limestone rock that has crevices and openings in it. The Capriccio statue is actually mounted in a misting or a fountain feature. And at the top and bottom of the hour when we are open, a misting fountain trickles up, sprays the area. It's all kind of wetland or wet soil tolerant native plants that are planted around the sculpture. And these basins fill with puddles of water, which allows various butterflies, insects, and even hummingbirds and regular birds to access water on their visit to the pollinator garden. Most recently, we have utilized another local artist. His name is Brooke White, and he has created this 100-piece glass plate installation on our newest building, the L&T Leslie Botanical Classrooms. He's named it Synthesis, and it was recently installed about 2 weeks ago. Here is a view, again, this morning of our pollinator garden. Right in front of you, you can see what's already growing very well and flowering and blooming in Metro Louisville. On the bottom center, this is threadleaf coreopsis or tick seed. Here is rattlesnake master coming up with some very beautiful foliage. This is golden Alexander, Zizia aurea. It's been in full bloom for about 3 weeks. Various cultivars of Atlantic nightbark, Physiocarpus opulifolius is in bloom. And of course, here's the very beautiful Fult's wild indigo or Baptisia australis. This is located to the north of our plaza, and we do have an enabling garden, which we call the edible garden planters. And this is at various different heights that allows both a wheelchair or anyone who may have issues of mobility who may not want to get down on their knees or would prefer gardening when they are standing. Those planters are located here in the plaza. Here's another view. Our education center is very uniquely shaped. It's amoeba or kidney bean shaped. And then here you see after all the amendments of soil, these are plants now have been in the ground going through their second growing season. And you see that they're doing quite nicely. Looking straight to the west, you see the skyline of downtown Louisville. Because we are on top of a former dump and while you're clearing it, any kind of weedy trees or invasive trees that were there have been removed. And so we are lacking shade right now. One of the few places we do have shade that we can demonstrate some shade loving perennials and shrubs is on the north side of our education center with this cantilevered overhang or soffit. And this is on the north side of the building, and where you can see that we have some Japanese sedge, our native, I'm forgetting the name of it already, our native spice bush, Lindera benzoin, as well as dwarf cultivars of oak leaf hydrangea, American witch hazel, and some other natives scattered along here. We are already being visited, and we have several kind of keynote events at Waterfront Botanical Gardens. In September, we hold our Regeneration Fair, which is a free to the public environmental fair. And here you see it from last year where everyone was attempting to social distance, but because we were outdoor, we simply required face coverings. And of course, quintessential when it comes to getting visitorship up during the winter months, we have Gardens of Glimmer This is in 2021, it will be our 3rd year. And of course, ticketed entry, during COVID really helped us out figuring out our way on how we are going to manage as we open many more days in the month of December for Gardens Aglimmer. So the last part of phase 1 will be an authentic Japanese garden. This is the rendering, the schematic design. It was designed by Shiro Nakane and Associates out of Kyoto, Japan. This is about 2.5 acres. And this, we will be doing a capital campaign shortly and announcing this to the general public for our capital campaign. In this garden, because again, engineering, we are on top of a landfill. Because of the weight of the water and the boulders for the water features, the waterfall, the stream, and the lake, we will have substantial pilings and support needed underneath the weight of the Japanese garden, let alone having the authentic tea house, a bonsai garden or a bonsai area, and a summer house. And then here is a rendering of the Japanese garden. This is the last of phase 1, and you can see in this drawing, in this rendering, our conservatory, and that is phase 3. The conservatory will be the first and only of its kind, the only conservatory in Kentucky. So we're excited about that aspect of Waterfront Botanical Gardens, bringing a conservatory into the state of Kentucky. If you do have any further questions, we have a great website. It's waterfrontgardens.org. It has everything about. These are drop-down menus. If you do want to visit, feel free to drop down the menu here. If you want to find out about our offerings in education, whether they be youth or adult, you can click on Learn. And of course, our events, our key events, you can click on events to see what's available to you if you happen to be in town. This summer, we have Music in the Gardens, as well as a members-only Sunset Sip event that are already selling out and are very popular. If you're interested in our plant collections, as well as our non-living components, such as our sculpture or sponsored trees, you can find us online, wbg.gardenexplorer.org. You can search our gardens by plant or by sponsored tree or by sponsored bench. Or other or engraved brick that maybe you had purchased, in the greater scheme of things in the development of our gardens thus far. So we'd love to see you the next time you're in Louisville. If things do or don't go well when you're bedding down at Churchill Downs, on Derby weekend, we'd love to have you swing by and see what the gardens are like. Again, we are a young botanical garden. One of only a few right now in an urban setting. Other, I guess, our sister organizations right now that are brand new include the Houston Botanical Garden, even the Tulsa Botanical Garden. So we're young and new, and if you are in town, come and see us. Very few people get to see the beginnings of a botanical garden, and you can be a part of history by seeing what we're up to. At this point, are there any questions?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Jamie. There's lots of comments in the chats about how it's gorgeous and just absolutely incredible that you were able to take a landfill to a botanic garden. There are some great questions. And I know that we're running a little short on time, but that's also because I took a while to introduce you. So sorry about that.
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead and field a couple of these questions to you. So the first is from Melissa, and she's curious to know if the soil is extra fertile based on being top of a landfill, and are the roots hardy?
We have not had any problems with any plants dying, and I would say the soil being on top of a landfill is not naturally fertile. It is high alkalinity. It is low in natural nitrogen, but high in natural phosphorus. The soil that was brought in the 1970s to cap the landfill or the dump, we don't know where it came from. And as we dig around through construction and planting, we kind of find out, what's sand, what's gravel, what was once topsoil that looked fairly good, that's all being, undermined. So we have to come in and, build up the soil. We use subsoil and then we fracture it. We add organic matter. We kick off the microbial life by putting down, we inoculate it with alfalfa pellets, as well as getting, some compost or fallen leaves out of the woods and put that around various root balls of trees to get things going. But so far, so good. And we're using, primarily we've been using all natural fertilizer with organic matter at this point, but we will probably have to start using some synthetic man-made fertilizers little by little as plants perform.
Thank you, Jamie. The next question we have is, have you had positive community reaction to your progress? Any lessons learned in this for other new gardens?
Yes, people are very excited, to find out what we're doing. We have people who remember it when it was still a dump, and they would drive by it, or they might even had inhaled the smoke when the dump used to burn in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. People are amazed at what we're doing. We are a nonprofit, so everything that we're doing is fundraising. We do search for grants. We are being we're being watched by environmental agencies at the state and federal level to make sure that we're doing things properly, because this is a brownfield site. But in general, people are excited. Having a botanical garden in Louisville has been great. Outreach into the community, talking about what we're doing. It's not simply just planting, throwing down some grass seed and planting a couple trees and boom, plant, the ecosystem is corrected. It's about bringing things from healthy soil to what are the issues of urban air pollution, the urban heat island in Louisville. We've got a lot of great sister or nature-based or green nonprofit organizations in Louisville. Trees Louisville, the Food Literacy Project, all these things that excite and support the community when it comes to plants have already been there. And so we're kind of a nice complement to those others, that we're bringing an actual documented collection of various plants that can grow in Kentucky, Anna.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was incredible, and I felt like I was there with you walking through it. So that was amazing. Thank you. I can't wait to visit. I do believe that's all the questions we have for now. But that being said, of course, feel free to put any more questions you might have for Jamie in the Q&A, and he can type out an answer to that, or in the chat, or of course, reach out to them through their website. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon, everyone.
Well, we're going to take a step out of Kentucky and kind of zoom across to the West Coast, where we're going to go explore the University of Washington Botanic Gardens in Seattle, Washington. So I would like to introduce Jessica Farmer, our adult education supervisor. So while Jessica is getting pulled up her PowerPoint, oh, she's already on it, but I did want to share one of our attendees, Melissa Price, who I believe was one of our Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania attendees, said that Pittsburgh is currently converting an old steel mill site to a green space called Hazelwood Green, who just had their grand opening last week. She said it's very exciting to see land repurposed for recreation or beauty, and I agree completely. It is very exciting, especially to see such fledgling gardens like Botanical Gardens and all that they've already accomplished, as well as some of our older gardens like University of Washington Botanic Gardens. So Jessica, feel free to take it away.
Thank you. And I will say here in my photograph behind me, I'm sitting here on the iconic Azalea Way at the Washington Park Arboretum, which was once a horse racing track. And we have part of our gardens that also were on a former landfill too. So it's exciting to see these great opportunities. So welcome to University of Washington Botanic Gardens. So we're in Seattle, Washington. I believe that I am representing the Pacific Northwest in this series. I don't think there's any other gardens from our region. So I'll tell you a little bit about where we're at and what else we've got going on. But my name's Jessica Farmer. I supervise the adult education programs and communications for UW Botanic Gardens. I've been in this role for about 8 years. And prior to that, spent most of my career so far in horticulture and public gardens. So it's always fun to share what we've got going on. All right, so as we get started, we want to acknowledge the land on which our gardens sit. The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all bands and tribes between the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. And we're honored to be stewards of this land and work in partnership with the people of the land. UW Botanic Gardens' mission is sustaining managed to natural ecosystems and the human spirit through plant research, display, and education. And through our education programs and our outstanding collections in natural areas, we really strive to inspire and enrich the lives of students and the public. So this is just a little screenshot with a map. I know it's a bit faint, but in the last couple of years, the group has come together for the Puget Sound Public Gardens to create a website with a bunch of great resources and videos and photos and interviews to help folks visiting the Pacific Northwest, specifically the Puget Sound or Salish Sea area, to find gardens to visit here. And so as part of your virtual garden tours this week, I hope that you can come see not just us, but some of the other gardens in our area. We sit within a really great growing zone, and there's a lot of horticultural richness out here that kind of has its own flavor in this corner of the country. As an organization, it's always kind of interesting to me to see how these university botanical gardens fit within their institutions. So we are a part of the School of Environmental and Forest Sciences and have been since the beginning, and that is within the College of the Environment at the university. At one of our two locations, the Washington Park Arboretum, we collaboratively manage that space with Seattle Parks and Recreation, and our major supporting partner at the Arboretum is the Arboretum Foundation, and they provide tremendous support in funding and advocacy and volunteer management. So, and then of course we, couldn't do our work without many other partners and supporters throughout the university and the community, including local, state, and federal land agencies, government agencies, as well as community partners and nonprofit organizations. Okay, so the overview here of the map, we've got two sites within UW Botanic Gardens. This here is in the kind of east northeast part of the city of Seattle. The big block W in the middle is where the university's main campus sits in Seattle. And then those two shaded areas in kind of a gold shading are our locations. The Center for Urban Horticulture on the north is about 90 acres. That includes the Union Bay Natural Area and the University of Washington Farm. And then to the south is the Washington Park Arboretum. It's about 230 acres. I'm going to give you a little overview of the garden spaces so you can see what everything looks like when you come and visit, and also the different programs we've got going on and ways that we help to serve our community. So starting at the Center for Urban Horticulture, this is the 90 acres in total. This site was opened in 1984. It includes a 16-acre landscaped site with buildings and gardens, and then the 74-acre Union Bay Natural Area, which provides publicly accessible wildlife habitat. More than 200 bird species have been sighted there, and it also serves as an outdoor laboratory for university research. So moving through the spaces at the center, we have here the McVeigh Courtyard. This sits in the center of our buildings where we have both our office space and some event space. The aesthetic goals of this garden were that it be visually attractive from all views, demonstrate an integration of the buildings and the landscape, and use plants in a way that is pleasing to all the senses. Now this garden was originally put in at the beginning in 1984. It was renovated about 8 years ago with some new woody shrubs and an assortment of unusual bulbs and ground covers for year-round interest. All right, moving through the courtyard, then you come to the Seattle Garden Club Fragrance Garden, graciously supported by the Seattle Garden Club. And this is really a garden for the senses. It's a space to sit and relax in the sun and listen to the songbirds and the nearby fountain, and really just breathe deep and take in the garden's rich, diverse aromas. Something we always talk about in the tours in this area is the winter flowering plants like Sarcocoa and Edgeworthia. This slide has some of the larger blooming species, but a lot of those winter flowering fragrant plants have really small flowers. And the low temperatures and also the abundant rain in Seattle in the winter can make it pretty physically punishing to have a um, big fragrant flower. So you'll find that the visual cues on the small flower or on a small flower, aren't as strong as on those large flowering plants. But a lot of these fragrant winter bloomers make up for that with their strong fragrance to attract the pollinators. The next garden area you come to is the Soest Herbaceous Display Garden. This opened to the public in 1998. And the garden was created to help local gardeners select plants appropriate to a variety of conditions commonly found in Pacific Northwest urban gardens. This garden features over 280 different kinds of herbaceous plants that include perennials, annuals, and bulbs, and demonstrates how soil and light affect plant growth and health. So the 8 raised beds that are all around a circle consist of either a sandy loam or a clay loam soil texture, representative of common urban soils. And then the use of small trees in the beds demonstrate how certain plants perform in partial shade versus full sun. The irrigation is applied using water-wise techniques to avoid wasteful runoff and evaporation. And then we're just constantly evaluating performance of the plants, and any cultivars that are too aggressive will be replaced by others that will grow well in this garden. Next zone you come to around kind of the other side of the buildings is the Mary Lou Goodfellow Grove. This picture was taken about 3 weeks ago in full bloom with the service berries. Those are hybrid cultivar service berries, but overall this area demonstrates the use of native plants in kind of a transition landscape, flowing from a more highly maintained, intensively used space to a more low maintenance naturalistic one. So the garden features native plant species from the Pacific Northwest, and generally the peak of bloom is mid-spring to early summer, though the autumn color can be outstanding. And this is a really nice area to sit and relax, and also for event spaces. A couple of the ways that we engage at the highest levels with students, one primarily is the UW farm. And so the farm is growing food at 3 different locations on campus, but the 1.5 acre site at the Center for Urban Horticulture is the largest condensed agricultural area. And this is a program of the Botanic Gardens. And the mission of the farm is to be the campus center for the practice and study of urban agriculture and sustainability, and an educational, community-oriented resource for people who want to learn about building productive and sustainable urban landscapes. So the food grown at the farm goes to UW Housing and Food Services, so students who are living on campus and everybody who's eating on campus, as well as a community-supported agriculture or CSA program. And then also, I think all along, but especially in the last year, a significant contribution of the food has gone to the UW Food Pantry that feeds anybody in the university community who needs access to affordable food or free food. And also they partner with some food pantries in the neighborhood. There is a vast array of learning opportunities connected with the farm for student capstone projects, internships, and class field trips. And there's connections across many different academic departments, including the environmental programs, biology, public health, nutrition sciences, and also anthropology and geography. Another exciting area of student engagement is the Society for Ecological Restoration's UW Native Plant Nursery. And this is also located at the Center for Urban Horticulture. The nursery's raised over 10,000 native plants since it was established in 2013, including individuals from over 100 different species. Well over 1,000 of these plants have been installed at various on-campus restoration sites, and many others have been installed at off-campus community restoration sites throughout the greater Seattle area. And then several hundred more have been purchased by local community members at the biannual plant sales, which they have been able to continue holding in a no contact fashion over the past year or so. Throughout the year, dozens of UW students and local community members enjoy participating in work parties held at the nursery, where they learn about general horticultural practices and the value of native plants in wild and urban landscapes. And those work parties have been largely on hold, but are getting started back up in small groups, and will be, just continuing to expand as time moves forward. All right, a big component of the land at the Center for Urban Horticulture is the Union Bay Natural Area. This is a 74-acre public wildlife area and natural restoration laboratory where more than 30 years of restoration have turned this former landfill into a diverse system of meadows, woods, and wetlands. This serves as a space for both teaching and recreation, but also as important habitat next to Lake Washington. I'd mentioned many bird species have been seen there, and then you can see this little picture in the corner is a beaver. The Yesler Swamp is part of the Union Bay Natural Area at the east end of the property. A walking loop through the swamp takes you on a boardwalk to the edge of Lake Washington and the site of the old pier of the Yesler Sawmill, hence the name. Restoration student projects started in this area in 2000 and are ongoing. And in 2010, we partnered with the Friends of Yesler Swamp community group to fundraise to build this boardwalk. Going inside the buildings for just a minute. The Elizabeth C. Miller Library has the most extensive horticulture collection in the Pacific Northwest, with over 15,000 books on gardening techniques, garden design and history, native flora from around the world, and 400 different magazine titles. While this is part of the university library system, it's also open to the public and operates a plant answer line service to answer questions from hundreds, if not thousands, of community members every year. We also house the Otis Douglas Hyde Herbarium that has a collection of nearly 20,000 plant specimens, primarily from the Washington Park Arboretum, including horticulturally significant plants and weeds. We collect everything in fruit and flower and then mount each specimen and store it in a controlled environment with the goal to preserve these specimens indefinitely. And you can see here some of the great plant pressings from the herbarium. A program that we also run that serves the entire state of Washington is Washington Rare Plant Care and Conservation, known to most simply as Rare Care. And the program is dedicated to conserving Washington's native rare plants through methods including ex situ conservation, rare plant monitoring, research, reintroduction, and education. So Rare Care trains volunteers to monitor rare plant populations in order to assess growth trends, determine population threats across Washington. The Miller Seed Vault, which is also run by the Rare Care program, is the largest vault of its kind in the Pacific Northwest. Seeds are stored in the vault for species protection research purposes and for possible future restoration projects. So this is a program that collaborates a lot with both private landowners and a lot of our public agencies. All right, so moving on to our older location, the Washington Park Arboretum, 230 acres here at the south end of the south end of the map. Is a beautiful site established in 1934. As I mentioned, it's 230 acres with more than 40,000 collection plants from around the world. The original master plan for the Arboretum was designed by the Olmsted Brothers firm. And as I mentioned earlier, this is collaboratively managed with the Seattle Parks and Recreation Department, where the city technically owns the land and the university owns and cares for the plants. And again, we have support there from the Arboretum Foundation. At the Arboretum, we have several core plant collections, many of which are nationally accredited by the American Public Gardens Association's Plant Collections Network. So you can see the list here and a few images. What does that mean to have a nationally accredited plant collection? So that is a process through which gardens apply for this accreditation for various plant collections that they have. And there's a number of criteria, but kind of above all, it involves a long-term institutional commitment to collect and document and grow and maintain living plants of a defined collection, to conserve the germplasm. And it's really, you have to demonstrate a commitment to support in terms of funding and curation, and then access to researchers and the public to maintain those collections. Our viburnum collection was recently highlighted in a story about how plant tissue was collected and contributed to research on plant genetics. And I just really wanted to highlight a quote from our interim director, Ray Larson, about this research. She says, "We don't just grow plants for beauty and landscape value. Botanic gardens such as ours are the arks or zoos of the plant world. We have an important role advancing plant research and in conserving and preserving the wealth of species that are found throughout the temperate climates of the world. Having a well-documented, well-cared-for plant collection helps ensure species survival and the potential for reintroduction." And so I think that we all have, well, many of us have a pretty keen awareness of the beauty and restorative mental and physical health qualities that can be found in gardens. And I think it's important that we also highlight the research value and the conservation value of the plants there within. Okay, so all of these collections at the Arboretum are displayed in a variety of thematic gardens. Starting with the ecogeographic gardens in the south end. This is from the Pacific Connections Garden. And this was a garden that opened in 2010, so fairly recently, and it's working through phases of development. In this garden, you'll find amazing plants from 5 countries, all connected by the Pacific Ocean. And that's what the ecogeographic organization, that's what that means. So it's 5 different regions. And so the areas that are represented in this garden include Cascadia, which is kind of our regional Pacific Northwest area, as well as Australia, China, Chile, and New Zealand. We also have collection plants that are organized in seasonal gardens, such as the Witt Winter Garden. This garden was originally planted and designed in 1949. It's long been a favorite of Arboretum visitors. In the late 1980s, it was named the Joseph A. Witt Winter Garden after the longtime curator of the Arboretum, who had a special interest in winter blooming plants. So you see a lot of witch hazels and camellias, and also trees with ornamental bark in this area. And then you'll find a lot of what you would traditionally see in an Arboretum collections that are organized by their taxonomy, by their plant families. And that was the organization of the Arboretum that was originally in the Olmsted Brothers design. All right, so those are our spaces, and our public education programs take place at both locations. We offer formal and informal learning opportunities to cultivate an appreciation of plants and the environment for folks of all ages. And so here's some pictures from the Fiddleheads Forest School, which is a pioneering outdoor preschool founded in 2012. It's evolved to include morning and afternoon classes and summer schools. It's entirely outdoors, and it's currently part of a pilot program in Washington State to license outdoor early learning and childcare programs. We also have a really robust summer camp and school field trip programs, as well as family nature classes. And over the past year, I just wanted to highlight that our staff has done incredible work to maintain some refined on-site preschool and camp programs. And then they have also created virtual field trips and take-home exploration kits, and formed partnerships with some nearby after-school programs to take some of our environmental education programming to their sites. And so really creative ways and really hard work on behalf of the staff to continue to connect youth with the environment during extraordinary circumstances. And then our adult programs serve over 4,000 community members annually. We have a lot of classes for the public on gardening and nature and art and wellness. and that connect folks with the latest research and expertise in horticultural, environmental restoration, and conservation. Um, we also have more professional classes teaching restoration and landscape professionals um, about kind of hands-on techniques, as well as hosting several annual conferences on topics like botany and ecological restoration and urban forestry. I just want to acknowledge for the last year, these programs have all been virtual, and just like what we're doing today, it's opened up a lot of opportunities for access that we're excited about incorporating in as we move forward to a blend um, of on-site and virtual programming. But just to show you, so our classes traditionally have looked like this and look like this, and more recently, they look like this and sometimes this. So just, I think, a couple more things to highlight here. We've got many different ways we partner with organizations. Something I'm really involved with is supporting the City of Seattle's urban forestry work. We support the Trees for Neighborhoods program to distribute 1,000 trees to Seattle residents every year, engaging in tree planting and care education, as well as monitoring the tree health of the trees that are planted through this program. I would be remiss not to mention when we're able to gather again safely for in-person events. We're a beautiful site for event rentals, weddings and special occasions and meetings of all sorts. Even in rainy Seattle, the garden is a great place to gather. And then our tour programs, typically we have walking and tram tours available. They're currently on hold. But we do hope that today's program gave you a little taste of a virtual tour, and we hope you'll come see us when we're able to do so. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take questions.
That was incredible, Jessica. I love getting to get a little taste of the Pacific Northwest there. I had no clue about the differences in flower size and everything like that. So really neat. Thanks for the wide range of information, and a great shout out to the Plant Collections Network. So thank you for that. So there are some questions that have come in. So one of the first questions was, is the UW campus open to the public?
It is. I think that right now, most, if not all, buildings are closed. So plan ahead if you can for your, physical needs and whatnot. But the campus is open to the public, and our gardens and grounds are all open to the public with pretty limited building access. But the visitor center at the Arboretum does have limited open hours now and restroom access.
Excellent, thank you. Another question that came in was wondering, do the local chefs get engaged with some of your student ag programs? I believe is what this was referring to.
Yeah, we have done some farm to table dinners, which are big community events kind of at harvest season, where the farm will partner with local chefs to do an event for kind of the students and supporters of the farm. But they've also engaged with some folks who are having other larger events like on our sites. I think that, I don't want to misspeak, I think Bon Appetit magazine maybe was there for a special event, and we provided some farm produce for their events and things like that. So it's not a huge part of what the farm does, but we definitely try and take advantage of opportunities to create those community connections when we can.
That sounds incredible. And then our last question we've had so far is, do you see more students getting involved and interested in gardening with climate change and the forecasted future food shortages? Do you see more students getting excited about horticulture?
Yeah, I think that it takes a little bit of a different flavor than what horticulture education looked like in the past. I think that students, what I see the greatest levels of interest and engagement is definitely with the food security, just what you said, food security, climate change, restoration ecology, nature and wellness, kind of those and urban forestry, those types of kind of equitable access issues with access to nature and how good it is for all of us to spend time in nature. So it's it's probably going to shift a little bit from traditional ornamental horticulture but I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And I think that students are still really excited about plants and the environment and nature. Yeah.
It looks like that's all the questions that we have at the
Okay.
moment, but thank you so much for that great
Yeah.
respite and visiting the Pacific Northwest, and thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the garden soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. Of course, if you have any questions for Jessica, she will be on for just a few more minutes or so, and you can feel free to pop her a question in the Q&A and she can answer it, or in chat, or feel free to check her out on the University of Washington Botanic Gardens website. So that being said, we're now going to take a venture down south a little ways, and I would like to introduce Scott LaFleur, who's the director, executive director at Sherman Library and Gardens. Welcome, Scott. Oh, Scott, we aren't getting your audio. But your background is stellar, just so you know. Nope, no audio yet. Nope. Now you're on mute. Nope, now you're back. Let's see. Nope, can't hear you still. Sorry. All right, we're gonna go ahead and jump to Sherman's video, and then Scott, if you need to exit and rejoin and see if that'll trigger the audio, feel free. So we'll get started with the video in the meantime.
Hey guys,
Tim, get your board.
let's go.
This beats working any day.
Hey guys, how are the waves?
Totally pitted for a chop
Last one in the water's a kook.
Hey, Riley.
What's up, Riley? Good to see you. I'm good.
We just got back from the wedge. Epic waves. We do our Friday staff meetings down on the beach all the time.
Oh, that's so cool. Don't you have a piece of history from the wedge here?
We do. So there was a tree that grows near the wedge, and all the surfers would touch it, called the good luck tree. They'd head out to the waves and want to make sure they came back. Well, it went down in a storm in 2017, and the Wedge Preservation Society saved it, and they made benches out of it. So we've got one here.
No way, that's so cool. I'll get to see that.
Yeah, and you got that little piece of history here, and we've also got the history of the entire Pacific Southwest in our library, great gardens, a cafe. I just want to show it all to you.
Oh man, I can't wait. This is gonna be cool.
Cool, let me stash my board, let me meet you at the Adobe, and we'll get started.
All right, I'll meet you there.
All right, man.
All right.
Riley, the tour and stuff is going to ring your bell today. We've got a great day planned for you. This is going to be awesome. So this is where it all started for us. Arnold Haskell moved down here from LA in the 1950s, bought this little Adobe. That's where it started. He turned it into his office. Oh, wow. And from there he started buying up the rest of the block to make Sherman Library and Gardens. So you know what? I'm not really one to tell you the history. Let's go see if Paul's in the library. He can tell you all about it.
Okay.
Hey Riley,
Hey.
come on in.
Nice to meet you, Paul.
Welcome.
Thank you. Wow, look at this.
This is our library.
So Paul, tell me a little bit about the history of Sherman Library and Gardens.
Sherman Library and Gardens was actually founded by a businessman by the name of Arnold Haskell. In 1955, he moved down to Corona del Mar and bought what we call the Adobe, a little Adobe house, to use as office space. And over the course of a decade, he very quietly managed to purchase an entire block of Corona del Mar, and in about 1966 started Sherman Library and Gardens. I think he was a remarkable guy in that Although he created this place, he decided to name it after his mentor, a man by the name of Moses Hazeltine Sherman, who had been an educator, a railroad developer, and a real estate developer in Arizona and Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. So this started out as a little office space and has turned into this whole garden?
It did. The library itself was, for many years, actually office space for the M.H. Sherman Company and eventually became the Sherman Library.
Oh, right on. So what kind of archives do you have here at the library?
Well, we have materials really from the Pacific Southwest. So we define that as Southern California, Arizona, and northern Mexico. And those are all areas that M.H. Sherman had business interests in. So we've collected materials that kind of shed a light on the development of those regions. And of course, we also have some, because we're in Newport Beach, we have lots of materials for local history as well that we've collected over time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, just looking around the library, we saw so many pictures of local history, Southern California history. So it's pretty exciting that there's this hub here. What kind of things do people come in here for?
They come in for really a very wide variety of reasons, but some of the most popular materials that we have are the old photographs. We have literally tens of thousands of photographs for Southern California, not only Newport Beach, but also Los Angeles.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about who Sherman was.
M.H. Sherman is an interesting man. He was born in 1853. Eventually, though, he moved into business and he became a major landholder both in Arizona and in Southern California. He was involved in creating the first electrified street railroad in Los Angeles. He created the first interurban railways in Southern California. And he was involved in major real estate projects, including the subdivision of the San Fernando Valley and the creation of the Hollywood Land subdivision, I should say, when it's the origin of the Hollywood sign.
Oh, wow. And so the origin of the Hollywood sign, he had a role in that.
He did. He owned most of the land that was subdivided for the homes up there. And the Hollywood Land sign was quite simply a means of advertising that development.
Oh, wow. Okay. A good backstory there. Do you think he ever imagined in 100 years he would have a whole garden center named after him?
I don't know if he would have imagined that, but he certainly wanted to be remembered, and he is remembered in some respects. So, for instance, Sherman Oaks is named after him, and the Sherman Way in the San Fernando Valley is also named after him. So I think he would be very pleased to have this beautiful library and gardens named after him.
Hey, Riley.
Hey.
Check out this new exhibit we're working on.
What is this?
This is our grass sofa. We've got a summer exhibit called
It's comfy.
called Greenhouse. We're creating living rooms throughout the garden. Pretty cool, right?
Literal living room.
Yep. All of those normal things you're used to seeing, but alive and part of the garden.
What kind of other exhibits do you guys have going on at the gardens?
Oh, yeah. We've had some pretty fun ones in the past. We've had our volunteers do a yarn bombing. They knitted and crocheted and covered palm trees and other specimens in the garden. We've had some glass blowers, ceramic artists,
Wow.
some great metal artists do some really cool sculptures in the garden. And we've even had a sandcastle artist make permanent sandcastles throughout the gardens.
Oh. You guys have literally covered all the creative angles here.
Yeah, we like to keep it interesting. And this particular exhibit that we're working on is actually made all in-house by our horticulture staff.
Wow, you know, I love hearing that because I think this is going to be one of the coolest exhibits you guys have ever done.
It'll be fun. Should we go check out the rest of the garden?
Yeah, I would love to see it.
Okay, let's go.
Oh, wow. So this is what you see when you walk in.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. This is a central garden. A lot of our private events and wedding receptions are held in this area. And we've got these big flower beds, and what we like to do is change out the colors seasonally. And you'll see we've just got our summer planting in here, and this summer we've got lots of beautiful sunset shades, oranges and magentas and purples, and our dahlias are just starting to bloom. Do you want to see some of them?
Yeah, let's check it out. Exactly. Wow, look at all of these colors.
So we've got dianthus, celosia. In these beds, we've got this beautiful orange nemesia, and it's a great place to hold private events and really show some cool flowers throughout the season. And right now we've got some dahlias starting,
Oh yeah.
nemesia. This is a really great agastache.
Okay.
Christmas time, we have a big Christmas tree here and a lot of seasonal color. It's really great. So our tropical conservatory houses a lot of interesting rare specimens, and we've got palms, anthuriums, our orchid displays in there. We've got some really cool heliconias and costas. You'll see. It's pretty fun.
So right in here.
Yeah, come on in. We've got a lovely koi pond in here, lots of big koi and some red-eared slider turtles.
Wow, I did not expect to see wildlife here.
Oh yeah. Now in the Tropical Conservatory, we've got some great palm specimens, anthuriums, orchids, bromeliads, even heliconias and costas. Here's a really interesting anthurium. This anthurium kind of grows like a vine, and you can actually see the flower is not like a normal florist anthurium, but it grows these really cool red fruit on it.
Oh wow. And that's edible?
Oh, well, when we say fruit in the horticulture world, it means the fruiting body of a plant. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's edible, but it's what comes after a flower, and it's the thing that grows the seeds.
Okay. So
don't eat it.
that.
Don't eat it. No, no. Our orchid displays right over here.
I can't believe how warm it is.
Oh yeah,
here.
this
So
is
it's like we've entered a whole new climate. I might have to take my jacket off.
So it's climate controlled, higher humidity, warmer temperatures in here.
I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But this is the environment that the plants are used to growing in. And we also water with reverse osmosis water, which means it's a really pure water, and that helps to mimic rainwater, which these plants require.
Okay, so you've pretty much created a whole new climate here in the gardens to grow totally different types of plants.
Yeah.
And this would be called tropical?
Oh yeah, this is tropical.
This is tropical.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, I feel like I've stepped into a jungle a little bit, like I'm in the Amazon or maybe Jamaica.
Yeah. Time to go on a vacation, right?
Yeah, I just come right here.
So we have an orchid greenhouse where most of our orchid specimens grow, and when they're ready to flower, we actually bring them out and display them in this rock wall here.
Okay.
We've got some really cool specimens.
Wow, they're beautiful. Look at how intricately designed they are.
Oh, this is the chocolate scented one here. Let's just check. Yeah, this is Oncidium Sherry Baby.
It's like I've walked into C's Candy.
If you like chocolate, I'll show you our chocolate tree.
I would love that.
Yeah. So chocolate grows from a tree called Theobroma. And this is actually still a young tree, but it grows flowers along the trunk of the tree. And the cacao fruit is this big pod. And when the pod's cracked open, you can take the seeds and the fleshy fruit out, and that gets fermented. And then you've got cocoa nibs that you can roast.
Okay.
It's quite the process.
Okay, well call me when it's ready.
Let's go check out the formal garden. This is the formal garden. The formal garden's made up of hedges that do strong lines, nice big curves. The most important thing is that it's a symmetrical design. Now, a formal garden's kind of traditional, but what we like to do is kind of mix it up and make it a little funky with some of the plant choices. We've got this kind of lemon yellow hedge. This is Ligustrum Sunshine. And right now we're just playing with contrast of colors and textures.
I feel like we've entered like the White House Gardens. We need to be extra proper here.
It's kind of serious, but you know, it's also an edible garden, so it's kind of like a farm at the same time. We just try to make it beautiful.
Oh, you can eat it, huh?
Yeah, we've got alpine strawberries, violas, let's see, we've got beets and dandelions, thyme, All sorts of stuff packed in here.
All right.
Now over here, we're getting ready to replant the border. And normally you might have really bright, beautiful flowers for a border, but we have decided to plant curled parsley. We've got this curled parsley.
Oh, can we eat it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Take a bite.
Fresh.
So we've got a handful of volunteers coming in to help us plant 30 flats of parsley tomorrow morning. And what's great is that the cafe actually comes into this garden and harvests stuff on a daily basis to plate some of their meals in the cafe.
Wow. Incredible. All right, so the formal garden is formal and fresh.
Yep. So let's go check out the sun garden. The sun garden's another place where we like to change things out seasonally.
Okay, where do you get all of the flowers and plants?
Well, finding plants is kind of interesting. It depends on the type of plant. There's either specialty growers, or we also work really closely with a lot of the plant societies in the area. So the Palm Society or the Orchid Society, they might have some interesting specimen for us and help us build our collections.
Okay.
We also hold a lot of plant shows in the garden, and that's a great place for us to find new varieties and species.
Oh, interesting. So it's a real communal effort to get all of these plants and flowers here.
Oh yeah.
Ah, this must be it.
So the sun garden is an area we change out all the time, and right now it's inspired by an alpine meadow. We've got conifers and annuals and perennials.
So what are we seeing here?
So this is foxglove. We've got scabiosa, columbine. We've got a really cool dwarf lupin over here. Let me show you. Got these beautiful dwarf lupin hybrids. But it's a really fun mixture, great color palette, and it's kind of whimsical in here.
Yeah, it almost seems like you could see fairies flying around in this garden.
If you stay late enough, maybe after we close the garden gates, that's when they come out.
Oh, okay. We'll come back here then.
Do you want to see the Mediterranean garden?
I'd love to.
Let's go.
Someone told me this part of the garden is the one that you're actually actively managing yourself.
Yeah, this part is sort of my baby. It's the Mediterranean climates garden. And we say climates because there are 5 Mediterranean climates of the world. The Mediterranean, parts of California, parts of South Africa, southwestern Australia, and parts of Chile.
Oh wow, all over.
All over. But what's really special about all these spaces is that these plants are perfectly suited to a cool, wet winter and a hot, dry summer. And that's the same climate that we experience here in California. So even our California natives are all perfectly adapted to grow together with all these really cool plants. Here's one of my favorites. This is pincushion, leucospermum. This plant is native to South Africa. Feel the flowers, they're almost plastic.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that neat? So these plants grow all winter while we have all that winter moisture. They bloom in the spring, and then in the summer, they're adapted to go kind of dormant. It's called summer dormancy. So they either stop growing or some even die down completely. Others are just annuals. So that means they die in the summer and then they spread seed and then germinate again and grow the next growing season.
Okay, so we're really seeing all this in its prime.
This is it, springtime. It's a time for
Okay,
Mediterranean
beautiful.
climates. Let's go check out the specimen shade garden.
Okay. Oh.
The specimen shade house has a lot of plants that are kind of tropical, but are hardy enough to grow outdoors in our mild climate. We've got understory palms, we've got more bromeliads, some really cool anthuriums. Here's a bird's nest anthurium over here.
Why do they call it bird's nest?
Well, actually, in the forest, they'll grow up on the branch of a tree, and the cluster of leaves ends up kind of looking like a big bird's nest up in the tree.
Ah, you think birds live there?
I don't know, sounds like a good spot.
I would if I was a bird.
Now back here is another area where we have part of our begonia collection, and we are able to display over 120 types of begonias.
Wow.
Some are cane begonias, rhizomatous begonias, sort of shrub-like begonias as well. And it's a mixture of hybrids and species, but each one is unique. Some have these really beautiful, dainty flowers. Others have kind of hairy leaves, and some even have kind of these metallic spots on the leaves that catch the light really beautifully.
Okay.
Now, begonias actually have a male flower and a female flower that are separate flowers but on the same plant. And you can tell the difference because one of them has a big ovary attached to the back, and that's actually what turns into the seeds as the flower is pollinated.
Wow.
Let's head over to the tea garden.
What's the story behind the tea garden?
So the tea garden is one of the original spots in our garden. It was the coffee garden before. Our volunteers would serve coffee and snacks in there to raise money for the garden. And these days it's the tea garden. We have high tea. It's also a great spot for classes and other events. This is the tea garden.
The tea garden.
And in the tea garden we hold wedding ceremonies. We've also got part of our fuchsia collection in here. You see these beautiful hanging baskets, fuchsias and begonias. And you'll find our collection of camellias in here, normally blooming in the winter and spring. Let's see, we've got Catherine.
Oh, hey guys.
Hi.
Riley.
Hi Riley, how are you? I'm Catherine, this is Marjorie.
Hey Marjorie.
I'm Marjorie.
Nice to meet you. What are you guys doing here?
Well, we're setting up for a Girl Scout visit later today. So what we like to do as part of our education programme is really talk to kids about throwing food to eat, recycling, environmental issues. So this is one of the activities we do. They make a newspaper pot, they plant a seed, and they learn all about nasturtium flowers, which, by the way, you can eat. So would you like to have a go?
I would love a go.
Okay. Marjorie, just show us how to do
Yeah, this is our paper pots activity, and you're just going to take your plastic coupler.
Okay.
You're going to put it on the doubled up side of newspaper
Okay.
and roll it up. After you roll it up, kind of make sure you have like a loose-ish tube.
Okay.
And then this is the part kids love. You smush it like that. And
Ooh,
then
that sound is great.
you set it on the table, kind of mash it in, and then hopefully your pot should come out. This is all about getting kids' hands-on planting, which is really fun.
Well, let's see, the moment of truth. Tell me how I did.
Looks great.
Okay.
Now you're gonna put some soil in. There's some in the cup.
Now, is this biodegradable because it's in paper?
Yeah, you can actually plant these pots right in the soil and the roots will grow through and break it apart.
Oh, I have never seen this before. This is so neat.
Yeah, there's more soil. Then you'll just kind of pat it down. Here's a nasturtium seed.
A nasturtium seed. So that is going to grow this flower?
Yeah. And then you'll put it in a small hole.
How deep?
About that deep.
Okay.
And then you'll cover it over and pat it. And now you have a future plant.
Wow. Yeah, that was incredible. Thank you guys.
Nice. You guys got his hands dirty and everything.
Yeah.
Ah, it's playing in the dirt.
Very hands-on. I love that. Didn't
That's cool.
expect that today.
Zach, you been having a good day?
Oh,
Tour?
the best day ever.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let me show you the favorite part of the garden that I think is just amazing.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Check out these stairs when you go down. Like on the back side, there's all these really cool succulents. That was actually an original design that Arnold House put into the garden. So it's
really?
very
So
cool.
that's
yeah,
part of the history.
Exactly. Now this is like my favorite part of the garden right here. This is like a living piece of artwork. We've got succulents and waves of stones and rocks that are just super cool. And then over here you've got like this dry mountain scene. Look at these cool barrow cactuses and the gray and blue ones that are in the background. They're all lit up at night. And then you've got this giant euphorbia that just towers over the whole thing. This aloe plant that's over here, and that leads down into like this underwatery looking kind of thing. There's actually shells that are mixed in there, fire sticks, which looks like reef and things like that. Totally cool. Best part is right here. Waves of succulents glass, it's like a living river that just moves your eye as you go through it. It's amazing.
Oh, that's incredible.
Matt, our curator, does an awesome job here. Actually, that reminds me, because you were just talking to the education department, we've got an amazing scholarship program with Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Matt was a 2-time winner and the very first one who ever won it, probably about 17 years ago.
Okay.
And it includes a full scholarship and room and board at Cal Poly for a year. And then they come here and they do an internship in the summer. So Matt won it twice. Erin, who was showing you around the garden, she was a winner. And then we also have Dawn, who's on our horticulture and floral team as well. She won as well. So simple way to get a job here at Sherman Library and Gardens. Go to Cal Poly, get the Arnold D. Haskell Scholarship, do the internship, and you got a job.
Oh man,
okay,
I know what I need to do now.
there you go, exactly. You know, the other thing is, you've been here all day, you got your hands dirty, been doing all sorts of cool things. Everything has to end. We've got to go to the cafe. It's a great place to sit, talk about what happened, check things out.
I'd love that. My
man.
stomach's rumbling.
Cool.
I'm excited.
Let's head down.
All right.
Riley, thank you so much for coming out today. It was great to have you here, just showing you around the gardens. I mean, I hope you got to understand all that we are.
I absolutely loved it. That was phenomenal.
I'm so psyched. The best thing is ending every day here. This great restaurant, Cultivar, we've got this great chef, Chef Jessica Roy. She uses all sorts of stuff from the garden to create things here in the restaurant.
Oh, wow. Garden to table.
You got it.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hey, Chef, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. What do you got for us today?
I've got our garden beet salad here. The beets came straight from our garden here at Sherman Gardens, and I've got amazing edible flowers and greens that were also picked just this morning, especially for the restaurant.
Awesome. Wow. Well, thank you. I
You're
can't wait to
welcome.
dig in.
Enjoy.
And it's this beautiful creation.
Well, thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you. Well, Riley, we always end the day this way here at the gardens. What we like to say is, if you have a library and a garden, you have everything you need.
Cheers to that. Thank you, Scott.
All right, Lauren, I don't know if my audio is working now.
I can hear you. We are
You
great.
can? All right. Fantastic. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed our video. I really wanted to kind of showcase the fun place that Sherman Library and Gardens is, and the fun staff that we have, and make a really engaging way to kind of get to view the garden and all. So I hope everyone out there really enjoyed that. It was really fun to make. I'm sure as many of you have. Over the past year, we've really turned to video for a lot, for training our docents. We did our annual garden tour, was a virtual tour this year. So we've really experimented in lots of ways, everything from iPhones to professional videographers. And for this one, we were actually lucky enough to work with some students from the Chapman University School of Film, which was really kind of cool as well. And so I appreciate all that they did to help us out there and to get this out to all you guys. And so, you know, when you get a chance, come by Southern California. It's a great way to spend the day. And, you know, it's really kind of it's not a place to live, but it's really a lifestyle. And that's what we really wanted to show with our video as well.
Well, Scott, if you don't mind me jumping in here with you, you got a couple questions that have come in.
Okay.
So the first question is, how is the garden design at Sherman influenced by your coastal location?
It definitely is. As you heard Aaron talking about the Mediterranean climate gardens, we've also removed our rose garden because we are so close to the ocean. May gray, June gloom, gets a lot of powdery mildew and things like that. So we definitely have to adjust for that. But then, you know, just going a few miles inland, you can get a radically different climate and grow roses like crazy. So we are definitely always adjusting to that. Our annuals adjust to it. And, you know, we'll just have to work through it, but we plant what we can.
Well, based on this gorgeous video, I have no doubt y'all are doing a great job of doing so. I also wanted to mention there were lots of kudos in the chat regarding the video and the presentation. And somebody actually messaged in and said that they joined your virtual home garden tour last week and it was amazing. So
oh, cool.
I'm
Cool.
kind of jealous that I missed that. So one of the our attendees actually also said they love the glass sculpture behind you. Who was the artist of that?
That is Christy and Scott. They are actually students of Chihuly, and they are up in Boulder Creek, California. And I am remiss in remembering their last name at the moment, but Viscosity Studio is their glass studio. And so this is one of the exhibits that Erin was referencing when she was talking to Riley.
Right. Well, I believe that's all the questions that we've had come
All
in
right.
right now. Of course, I would encourage our attendees to feel free to submit any other questions through the Q&A. Scott might be around for a few more minutes to be able to answer those or in the
Absolutely.
chat. And of course,
And if
feel
you,
free to
if
visit.
you want to see that virtual garden tour with the Sherman.org, you can still get tickets for it. So.
Oh, perfect. Ooh. So check that out and be sure to actually go check out Sherman Library and Gardens in person.
Absolutely. All right, Lauren. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so we are now going to board a plane and jet across the United States, arrive in Washington, D.C. to visit the U.S. National Arboretum. If you're not joining us live, I'm afraid that this is where our recording ends. And so I would encourage you to go visit the U.S. National Arboretum in person. It's an amazing place. But for those of you who are here with us live right now, we are going to get to check out the U.S. National Arboretum.